The following is an OHEI podcast production. This episode may contain coarse language and content sensitive to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right. Welcome to our Downtown Eastside talks. I first want to do a land acknowledgement that we're on the unceded and traditional territories of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I also want to do another acknowledgement that we're having a show called Our Downtown Eastside Talks without residents of the Downtown Eastside. This is a conscious decision for the safety and respect of people who are living outside and in our SROs. It's not something with the police presence that we're comfortable with, and we're not willing to risk that for content. Today I'm here with Janarae from, and where are you from?
Hi, I'm originally from Flagstaff, Arizona. My dad's side is Class Nation of the Northern BC Territory.
Oh, beautiful. And what organization are you with?
I work with Indigenous Innovations.
What does Indigenous Innovations do?
Indigenous Innovations, what we do is we help status Indigenous and Indigenous people connect with healthcare throughout the Lower Mainland. And we've helped Indigenous people in the Northern Territories and also on the island. We advocate healthcare as well. We have connected with several different organizations, the hospitals, the clinics, eye clinics, dentists, denturists, you name it, pretty much everything regarding healthcare we've connected to. We've also connected with First Nations Health Authority, Vancouver Coastal Health, and Fraser Health Authority. So we know everything that's available on the status card, and because the status card changes how and what they provide without really letting the community know. So we're here to, I guess you could say we're the best information tool, and we also have the organizations that understand generational trauma from the residential school era and the 60 scoop era.
And for people that might not know the residential schools and the 60s scoop, what were those? Residential school people are more familiar with, but maybe not the 60s scoop.
Oh, okay. Well, I myself am a 60 scoop, what we call the 60 scoop baby. So 60 scoop was pretty much almost very similar to the residential school era, except for when we were taken, we weren't put into boarding homes. We were put into the Ministry of Foster Care. I was taken from my mom when I was 2 months old. She was working. But because there was no daycare or childcare at that time for her moms, she had me at work with her, and the ministry found out. And obviously, she wasn't. She worked as a chambermaid at the Empress at the time in Victoria. So she had kept me like in a crib in one of the rooms while she did her job. But the ministry did not appreciate that, so they apprehended me. And there's so many different stories of different people that were apprehended for so many different reasons, thousands, and it's disheartening to know that the people that they've taken from their families, some don't even know where they come from because they were moved around so much and paperwork was lost, so they don't even know what nation they're from, where they were born. If the person has had a bad experience in the healthcare field, we're there to help support and guide them to a non-judgmental, very supportive clinic or organization that will help them get their healthcare needs.
Right. People might think that, like Canadian healthcare is like some of the best in the world, and might not see why there needs to be any kind of advocacy or extra help around that. What is the importance of what your organization does?
That's honestly a good question, because I was one of those many people that didn't really see a problem with our healthcare system. And working on this side of the fence, advocating and actually seeing how the system works through this side of the fence. We've had several clients of many cultures coming to us stating they wait at the hospitals too long, they don't get a proper diagnosis or a diagnosis of what's going on with them, or they feel judged or stigmatized because of either race or the way they dress, or just feel that not myself, but quite a few clients that have come through their office stating that they were severely sick and they go to a clinic. The clinic will, I'm going to use this one person as an example. She is a client of ours, and her aunt was extremely ill, and her aunt had gone to a clinic, and the doctor just looked at her and said, well, it's just antibiotics. And she felt like, well, I'm in a lot of pain. He goes, well, I'm not going to give you pain. He literally told her that she was there only to get the medication, like a T3s or whatever. And she said, no, I'm actually in a lot of pain. So not only did he not diagnose her, he did not give her any tests, he didn't get any scans of what could possibly be wrong with her. So she took the antibiotics, and the antibiotics didn't work, so she went back to the emergency room of the nearest hospital, and the doctors there again ignored her wishes and didn't again do any kind of scans or tests or anything like that. So her niece came and said, can I bring her here? And I said, absolutely, we could do whatever I can. So when she brought her aunt into our door in our office, she had to not only help her, she almost had to carry her in through the door because she was in a lot of pain. And her infection on her legs, I didn't understand how the severity of it was. And then she sat down, and I went to explain what we did to her, and her niece said, no, I already know what you guys do. I said, I need you to look at her legs first before you go on. And I said, okay, well, I'm not really a doctor. I could. And then she lifted up her pant leg, and her legs were so black. The color of her skin was black. And I immediately told him of a great hospital that was very close to us at that time. And I said, please bring her there. They're very respectful. They're very fast. And they will take care of her. And they took her niece took her to the hospital where I told her to. And she called me about 11 o'clock at night and said they just took one look at the leg, and they hooked her up to an IV drip of antibiotics, and they started running all the tests ASAP. When this same lady came into my office, that looked like she was so tired and just ready to just give up. She came through my office on door Monday morning, a whole new person. The skin color was back in her face. She gave me a hug. She was, thank you. I'm pretty sure I most likely would have died if I stayed where I was, because she had given up. She had tried everything she could at the area where she was living, and they were just passing her off of like just somebody that wanted to get pain medications or whatever. So I said, I have to ask, like, what was the end of like the diagnosis? That, because obviously they ran tests, and they said they diagnosed her with 4th stage liver cirrhosis. And I know that could have been very well prevented if the doctors at the clinics that she had gone to the first few times would have actually done some tests. They would have been able to prevent it from getting that severe. So, long story short, that's just one of many, many, many incidents and cases that we advocate for in the healthcare system. And we feel we don't in a way, we don't blame the doctors in the clinics, especially at the hospitals. I get it. The doctors are understaffed, overworked, and they're outnumbered by the members of the community. But I understand if you're that burnt out, don't pass somebody off when they're actually trying to tell you something. Like all these doctors took an oath to help their communities with healthcare and to not be there to judge or to stigmatize a person, no matter what race, color, or gender the person comes in. They're coming in with a healthcare need. So those are the things that the majority of the things that we advocate for.
Right.
Yeah.
And when something like that happens, is that attributed to addiction or just racism or?
All of the above.
Right.
Yeah. Because Indigenous, there's only a fraction of Indigenous people here on the Downtown Eastside, as opposed to the multicultural that is down here. And I can guarantee you, majority of them did not grow up or did not have a tendency, hey, I don't want to do anything with my life. I just want to self-medicate myself for the rest of my life and be homeless and eat garbage and whatever. I know for a fact the majority of the people that are outside our office have either severe trauma or severe mental health issues that have not been diagnosed yet, or both.
Right.
And find that they feel a connection to other people down there because the other people down there have the same thing. So, yeah, they all have a relation of an understanding of feeling outcasted. So they all form, like, I guess, their own little group and kind of help each other through whatever they can. And if you ever walk down through there, a lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm clutching their bags and wondering if they're going to get robbed. But they have to be the most aware of, if you walk down there and you have children, you'll hear all the way down the block, child on the block,
Kid on the block. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
if you've
one of my
experienced that.
That's one of my favorite things that happens in the hood. If there's a kid on like in the vicinity, people right away yell and like stop what they're doing, make sure that the kids are safe. Like,
yeah.
It's beautiful.
And it seems that way all the way down, like wherever they feel. I mean, they're very obviously they're extremely transparent of like where they're at and what's going on with them. And a lot of them come into our office because our office door is always open, and they come in sometimes, especially during the winter time when when the shelters and everything are overcrowded. They'll come in and we know they're just pretending to ask a question, and they'll sit down and they'll fall asleep. We have like extra blankets where we just let them sleep on wherever they're at. If they're comfortable sleeping like that, we'll just throw a blanket at them and let them sleep as long as they need to. But obviously, if we have to close up the office, we're like, hey, unfortunately, we're closing, and yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. There's increasingly businesses gentrifying the area. What is it like to be right on Hastings as an organization that cares?
I've been a frontline worker down on the Downtown Eastside, Hastings, for close to 30 years now through several different of the organizations. And I have never once have to worry about being robbed or attacked or assaulted in any way, because you stop and you talk to them. They are so friendly and so talkative. They just are welcoming conversations. And when I started working with Indigenous Innovations, we park our cars right there on Hastings, and I hear them like literally, hey, don't lean on those cars. Hey, get away from those cars. They're the ones that are actually protecting their cars. They're not breaking into any cars. They're not like trying to steal anything from anybody. They're just there doing their best to self-care themselves with the food that is given to them and other necessity of clothing or whatever it is that's given to them. Not once have I ever, out of the 30 years, have I ever been assaulted in any way or disrespected in any way from the people, from the homeless, I guess, category or the low income of the Downtown East Side. They've been super nice. If anything, they'll go out of the way, like, hey, I don't know if you've witnessed this like really touches my heart. When I see somebody on the sidewalk with their hat out looking for change, and the person down or somebody's like, oh, I don't know if I have enough because they want to get a bag of chips or something. The person will literally take the change out of their hat and they'll go give it to them.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this person is like literally begging for a change to help themselves, but they, without hesitation, will give anybody that money. Yeah. And they put quarters in parking lots. Some people don't know this, but I've seen them put quarters in parking lots.
I don't drive, so I wouldn't notice something like that.
I've seen them do that. Like if they're sitting there and they notice that the parking the meter's almost up, they'll put a quarter in. And that's when they had those kind of meters out. They would do that.
That's cute.
Yeah.
There's been an increased police presence out in the area because there seems to be like a misconception that it's a dangerous place. Like I've never found it to be that way. I've walked all hours. Like I've lived right on Hastings, so I've gone out at 2 a.m. to get milk, kind of thing. I'm really, and I really don't feel any fear or like if you know most of the people on the block, if someone happened to do something violent or out of order, there'd be 10 people that would be telling them to stop. Do you think this seems like a silly question, but do you think that the police presence has done anything for the safety of the neighborhood?
I'm glad you actually asked that question because since COVID, like when COVID happened, the world seemed to forget about the Downtown Eastside. That they were almost like the last resort of helping because they felt, oh, you guys are outside, you're not going to get infected. But they actually made their lives worse by shutting everything down. So I feel like when the COVID hit and all their resources they have the safe injection sites, they have drug testing places where they were able to go, just all their safety mechanisms that they use and need on a daily life was closed down for months, not days, not weeks, for months. And they had no resort to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And they had to honestly get together themselves and find out, like, okay, what are we going to do? They like literally obviously don't care about what's going to happen to us. So they started making their own little huts and their own overdose prevention sites by gathering up as much naloxone kits and their own oxygen tanks. So if somebody happened to overdose, they can run out and give the person oxygen, do whatever they can until the ambulance got there. But as for the violence and the so-called resources for these police officers down there, I honestly think it's made it worse. Is because they're not down there to actually protect them. They're actually down there to take them from where they need to be, as a lot of them know that's where they get their food, where the people that hand out food come and set up their awnings and their tables. Those people that don't get us wrong, that we're very grateful that they do this, but they only choose the main and Hastings area, not realizing there's Crab Park, there's Oppenheimer, there's also over by Raycam, there's also over by Britannia, there's so many other places that are going without all these resources that the Downtown East Side is getting. So they huddle where they know that they're going to set up the food tents. And some of these food tents aren't just bringing food, they bring clothes, they bring actually medical kits with polysporin, Band-Aids, things that they may need if they need it. Like if somebody gets cut, something, they have their own little kit that they could clean themselves and put a Band-Aid on. Well, they need it. So all the resources are literally right down by Main and Hastings. So you take that away from them and for months on end, and they have no choice but to go right into the survival mode. So now they're still continuing on their survival mode from the COVID, when COVID hit, and setting up their tents and whatever. I get it congests the sidewalks. Okay, so set up more housing, set up more, a safe place like modules where they can set up. I've seen other smaller places on the island where they've made these little simple wooden little huts that had like a little cot in there and a certain place where they could shower, and the only condition that they had was they had to keep that place clean. That was it.
Right.
So if they had more of these resources, they wouldn't have to camp out on the sidewalk. And the police officers, not all of them, but there were some that got aggressive when they don't need to be, because most of the time these people, you say you need to leave, they're not liking it. They don't like it because that's all their home and all their belongings that they have. But they'll listen. They'll take it down and they'll move. But most of the time,
Yeah, they're still pretty polite about it, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard any of them retaliate or become aggressive when being told to move. They get grouchy like anybody would. Like if you're having a good, like example, you're having a good sleep and somebody comes and wakes you up, you're like, oh, I was having a good sleep. Yeah. These people sleep when they can because their bodies are tired. So they finally find a spot where they can sleep comfortably, sort of comfortably, and then you got somebody telling them, no, you can't be here. Okay, well, there's nobody that's using this place. There's nobody, this building is pretty much condemned. Why can't I just sleep right here on the sidewalk or wherever? And you got the police officers there. So I think at times, I don't think there that much is needed for that area because they are all pretty polite.
Yeah. ABC and Ken Sims ran on getting 100 new cops and 100. It was supposed to be 100 new cops and 100 new nurses for the area, but instead he got 200 cops. So there were 60 officers patrolling that area, which is only 4 square miles.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the ratio of cop to person living outside, but it doesn't seem like good accounting at all.
No, I don't. And I honestly think, if you ask me, that's not only excessive, but it's a waste of money. Any violence that have happened down there is targeted. It's not random. It's not random to any specific stranger, because if it was, there would be a lot more violence happening down there than there is now.
Yeah.
And the violence that does happen is far in between. It almost like happens in very, very small clusters where there's a stabbing or there's a shooting. I think like almost a month ago, it was like 2 or 3 days straight. There was shootings around the Main and Hastings, but that was targeted. The police even said those were targeted shootings. They're not random, and they were between the drug dealers and their associates, not civilians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Janarae, for coming on. I really appreciate you
You're
talking
welcome.
to us. You're my very first interview for our Downtown Eastside Talks, so I'm honored. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.